Hey, Lakers fans, welcome to the Lakers Theory Podcast, October 26th edition. I am Shane Jackson. Joining with me, as always, is Austin Case, and we are going live right after a big win over the Spurs. I think maybe big's a stretch. A gutsy win over the Spurs, I should say. 125 to 121. The Lakers are now 500 on the year, 2-2. Overall after their second straight win because they beat the Grizzlies on Sunday. I'll give the floor to Austin as I always do to start off the podcast, but I just want to say Russell Westbrook III just had a breakthrough game for the Lakers in Game 4. Looked incredible. That's what I'm going to talk about a bunch for the start, but I'll give you the floor to you, Austin. Do you want to talk about Russ or do you want to go in a different direction?
I can talk about Russ. I can be positive about Russ. This was an interesting game. Like it wasn't your typical LeBron-less game where I going into the game, once I found out he wasn't playing, I was like, we could still win this game. Like I didn't have any doubt going into the game that we would lose. Obviously, over the course of the game, I was like, you know what? We might lose this game. And, thankfully, the Spurs missed like 6 straight free throws. So if it wasn't for that, we would have lost. But no, man, Russ looked like Russ. Like, I think, that was kind of those first 2 games, or especially after the first game, it was kind of like, what AD and LeBron were saying. We're like, we just need Russ to be Russ. Mm-hmm. And once that happens, then things are going to turn around. And I think we saw that tonight, or we definitely saw that tonight. Hopefully it isn't something where we have to be without LeBron or AD for Russ to have games like this. If that's the case, then maybe we'll be in some trouble. But, as a Lakers fan, having Russ on my team, it was nice to see that. So hopefully he can keep that up. Once we are at full strength, it would be nice to see performances like that. If Russ, AD, and LeBron could put up 25 to 30 points apiece each night, we'll be in good shape.
So Russ finishes with 33 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists in 40 minutes of action on 15 of 20 of 27 shooting. He was just fun, fun tonight, getting to the rim and just kind of entering F-it mode. Like, hey, this is going to default to maybe some old Russ tendencies. And honestly, so everyone even us who criticized the trade from the jump, this is like best case scenario for the Lakers, right? Or why you acquire Russ in the season. A game where you don't have LeBron or AD, one of those two, if you don't have them, Russ can be Russ and help you win a game like that. And I think that's maybe what the Lakers envisioned after a year where they, struggled with injuries with LeBron and AD. Notably, LeBron didn't play this game. AD got banged up in the fourth quarter. And so I think you saw maybe at least what their line of thinking might have been in the summer when they made this move. But he was just fun. I don't know. I guess I'm looking at it through the lens of, you as an avid hater of his game of basketball. But I've never minded the way he played, but it's always different when, you're watching someone on your team. And I don't know. When he was doing so many things that were just making me kind of jump out of my chair, that dunk there in overtime, where he splits the defenders and goes down. I mean, it was just incredible. That was some of the most fun I've had watching sports so far this year, which has not been good lately for me. I did not watch Sunday's game after kind of a brutal weekend. Wasn't able to figure out how to get League Pass to work. I moved, obviously, to Las Vegas, Nevada. It turns out that's in Lakers zone, and they were unavailable to watch. And so, that was just really depressing. But shout out my friend Steven Sultman. He figured out a way for me to stream this game and stream Lakers games moving forward so that we can actually watch and do podcasts. Because otherwise, this would have been very hard to do. We almost did a podcast on Sunday where you just gave analysis, and I was just there. But luckily, we don't have to do that. And shout out Steven Sullivan for that. I did want to mention Anthony Davis. I thought he was incredible. And then obviously he goes down with that kind of knee injury that was a little bit scary, honestly, a lot scary. I thought, why can't we have nice things? But tell me what you thought about AD's performance overall and maybe that injury in particular.
AD looked great. Like I felt like he was aggressive, definitely the most aggressive to date this season, which, we're 4 games in, so that's not saying too much, but, he just looked great. He looked active defensively. And like, it was great to see him play at that level, all game. But when he went down, I was like, maybe next year. That was my thought. I was like, grabbing the knee, like obviously, tons of things can happen. Like, he could have someone could have ran into it and, a knee to knee kind of thing, which I think that may have been what happened. But yeah, I was legit worried when he went down. And then once he stayed in the game, initially I was like, okay, maybe it's just a stinger. And he's just kind of gutting in out to finish this game off. But then once he came back in overtime, I was like, he's probably okay. Like they're not gonna risk his season-long health for one game. So I feel like they would have made the best decision had he, any doubt in his mind that he wasn't going to be able to go.
Yeah, and they threw the alley-oop to him right after that injury. Like, I thought that was kind of crazy. Like, and then, right after regulation ends, he just flops to the floor. I was very concerned in general, but he gutted it out. I don't know what that means about his future availability. I mean, you mentioned the possibility that, we don't see him tomorrow, but if LeBron's not playing, I have a hard time believing they're going to keep, shrinking that bench down further. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But really just the gutsy performance. And really I wanted to bring him up in the context of just how he's looked over the last couple of games. I am planning on watching the Grizzlies game after this, actually. But I saw enough of the highlights and stuff that, he was locked in defensively, especially down the stretch, and maybe has a real legit case for Defense Player of the Year when it's all said and done if he's playing like this. Kyle Kuzma even tweeted during that Sunday game that, nobody plays as good defensively when he's tapped in. And there might be some truth to that. Anthony Davis is when he's locked in on that end of the floor, he's one of the 2, 3, 4 best players in the sport at defending, just defending in general. So yeah, I don't know. I'm quite excited about maybe Anthony Davis's kind of start to the season in general, outside of maybe this injury right here, because I don't know if we saw too many glimpses of this last year, right? He played, I believe it was the Suns, late last year, where he said, "I'm back." It was that game. And that was probably the most we saw, kind of AD dialed in. And then we really didn't see it much at all outside of that. So I don't know, just seeing that so early in the season has been really optimistic for me, because I feel like the kind of conversation around the Lakers has been rather negative, especially from the national media standpoint, which is fair because, you're wanting to pick apart the team a little bit and see why it won't work, right? But I think I've actually come away somewhat optimistic because, maybe LeBron looks a lot healthier than I expected him. AD looks more locked in, and it's a matter of maybe Russ fitting, and that remains to be seen. But I think I lean more optimistic than I figured I would be at this point at 2-2. Obviously, they have a lot of kind of defensive issues in general, especially tonight. I mean, they did a lot of those drop coverages, and Spurs were just taking advantage of the mid-range. Spurs were getting out in transition. So I think, there are concerns on the end of the floor, but given that this team is missing a few pieces, I actually remain somewhat optimistic, and I might live to regret those words, but I don't think it's all doom and gloom that maybe the conversation has appeared to be, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like I at certain points in this game, like I thought Reaves was like, he was just getting cooked like over and over again. Um, and then I kind of thought, I'm like, he played 30 minutes tonight.
Mhm.
And so I was like, with how many guys are not playing, like he might not, he might be the odd man out
Yeah.
certain nights. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I felt like he was just getting cooked and cooked there for a while, and I was like, why not bring Avery Bradley in? Like he can knock down shots, and he's probably going to be a better option defensively. And then about that time, that's when Reaves kind of knocked down a few key shots. And that's when also you commented to me about my take for not playing him. But I stand by what I said. I would have looked somewhere else, mainly for defensive efforts and stuff like that, because I felt like at that point in the game, it was borderline. It could have easily gotten out of hand for them, but
Mhm.
about that time, that's when they hit a couple key shots and it kind of turned around. But overall, like I'm optimistic as well, because we see games like tonight where they just figure out how to win, and
Mhm.
that's kind of that was a big thing. And they're missing some key guys, and so we have that to look forward to. And also, like, how are they going to fit into kind of the rotation that we've been building throughout the past 4 games and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting. I'm excited for it. Yeah, we just kind of have to keep going before we can really see what they're truly made of.
Yeah, and I thought your Bradley point was valid when you sent that to me, but I think my argument would have been that the other day when he played, what was it, like 20 minutes or whatever, he didn't really
Mhm.
factor into the stat line at all, and he was still minus on the floor in a big way. And whereas at some point, especially with this current roster construction, you just accept that they are going to have legit issues on the defensive end of the floor, and Austin
Mhm.
Reaves brings you something on offensively that some of those guys don't. Now, when they have a few of their guys back, I wonder if Austin Reaves would have lasted as long as he did on the floor after making some early mistakes. But I do want to credit Reaves in general, because I mean, for a rookie, that had to show a
Mhm.
lot of composure to deal with some adversity early on, and not play as well as he had the last couple of games. And then still hit 2 or 3 of the bigger shots, in the
Yeah.
fourth quarter when the Lakers were making the run. I thought, and honestly, that block attempt that he tried to have, like, it could have been a charge the other way. So I don't know.
Mhm.
I just thought he was composed and savvy, and quite impressed with what he did tonight. Maybe more so than like when things were going well for him, the previous game. So I don't know. I will stand Austin Reaves is what I'm trying to say, which wasn't going to take much. I needed someone else to stand. So after Alex Caruso left us, but who else do we need to talk about? Malik Monk hit a ridiculous shot there in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
So Russ and Bazemore were sitting at the scores table for like 3 minutes waiting to check
Mhm.
into that game, and it was just not stopping. And I don't know, Malik Monk just walks up and takes a deep three, and I'm just going, "Why are you taking this?" And then splash! I was like, "I love
Yep.
it." So
Yep.
that
Yep.
was such an incredible shot.
Yeah, he started to pull up, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is not happening." And then he made it, and I'm like, "Well, fuck
Yeah.
it, it went in. Like, who cares?" But no,
And
there were a few shots like that. Like, I think Russ. Honestly, anytime Russ has a ball, I'm like, "Oh god, he's gonna throw it up, and it's gonna be a terrible shot." Um, he did take the three that he made tonight. It was like that. Like he caught it, he started to pull up, and I was like, no, and then it went in. I'm like, okay, I disagree with the shot, but it went in. So, um, I feel there were a handful of shots like that, but like honestly, that Monk shot, it was so impressive. He had to have been 4, maybe 5 feet behind the line, and I
mhm.
mean, just nailed it. And yeah, I mean, that was a big shot.
Yeah, and then Dwight Howard, I thought, played well defensively in the fourth quarter. The Lakers were down double digits or something like that, and they made a run. I don't think it happens without kind of Dwight Howard being really active, especially with his hands and kind of sliding very well. And so I was very impressed with what he did during that stretch, and I think he deserves credit. I was trying to give as much shout outs as possible because I feel like sometimes we focus so much on just the three stars, but Dwight Howard I thought played really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely I feel like I noticed just a defensive effort shift down the stretch there once Dwight got in the game. And it was just I personally felt like they just weren't necessarily giving as much effort as like I would say we're used to seeing from a defensive standpoint from a Lakers team. And so from that aspect, I was getting kind of frustrated and stuff. But I definitely feel like once Dwight got in there, it kind of changed the pace of how the defense operated, and it proved beneficial.
Anything I missed from the Memphis game on Sunday that's worth getting into here as we close out this pod? I'm again going to watch it here. So what should I be looking out for? I heard Carmelo is really good.
Yes, Carmelo balled. Without his contributions, we don't win that game. Not Lakers related, but watching Ja Morant in this game is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So, that will be exciting. Outside of that, they won. So you got that to look forward to.
Yeah. I mean, when we had talked about this after the Suns game, but this schedule obviously shaped up really nicely for the Lakers just when we were panicking, like, hey, they were going to get, a bunch of winnable games and maybe could put something together and find a rhythm. That started obviously the last two games, but now they've turned to OKC tomorrow night or Wednesday night, and then Cleveland on Friday, and then back to back at home against Houston, right? Sunday and Tuesday or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds right. I could be wrong. Nice stretch to really pile up some wins. Honestly, Wednesday, I thought this was the game that, if they were going to let one slip, like that was it, especially without LeBron. So now I kind of expect wins, which is shaping up to us having to do a post-game pod of them dropping a game they shouldn't have, which would be very depressing. But we will try to do these as much as possible. Make sure to follow us again on all social medias at Lakers Theory. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We got a follow from a person named MIGM89, and I see in this person's bio #BoomerSooner, and also Lake Show. So a combination of being an Oklahoma Sooners fan and a Lakers fan. And I just want to tell that person that I have a decent wager on Oklahoma winning the national title in college football. So I'm also a Boomer Sooner fan for the next 3 months. How about that? And then also a Lakers fan as well. But yeah, make sure you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. It will notify you when we go live. And also we will post updates throughout the games because I'm a very emotional tweeter. Like I let the game I get into the game and I'm like, we're doomed. I'm pretty sure I put out a poll that said, are we a good basketball team? And the answers were no or hell no. So I'm pretty emotional, but then I get out on this podcast and I have to tell you guys, kind of reasonable analysis while I let Austin be the emotional guy. So Twitter is where you'll get my authentic self in terms of this is what I'm feeling in the moment. So Austin, anything else to add before we close this thing out?
Nothing for me.
Okay. I'm very glad I could watch this game. Thank you again to Steven for helping me figure that out, because if I had gone another game without watching the Lakers basketball, I would have probably cried, especially if I had missed this game. That was so fun. Honestly, I think I saw a national writer, now I can't remember who it was, Chris Herring, I believe, who said it was much like a college basketball game in the best way. And honestly, it felt like it. Like the atmosphere was great. Lakers fans were filling up that arena. It was incredible. So for a random regular season game in October, I had a lot of fun. and Russ was a big reason why. He's Austin Case. I'm Shane Jackson. Thank you so much for listening, Lakers fans, and see you next time.